This is Jasper.
And this is Randy.
So this is the 1956 The Killing, which was directed by Mr. Stanley Kubrick.
So I know somebody who once called that guy a hack.
Okay. Anyway.
Wow. Okay.
It was written by Stanley Kubrick, Jim Thompson, and Lionel White. Lionel White wrote the novel. Mm-hmm. It stars Sterling Hayden, who plays Johnny Clay, Colleen Gray, who plays Faye, Vince Edward plays Val Cannon, J.C. Flippin plays Marvin Unger, and Joy Sawyer played Michael Riley.
So, okay, you did not react to that at all how I expected, but this is the first Stanley Kubrick movie we've covered on the podcast, and I had to jump in because this is well before we even started recording this podcast, like GCU in general. Jasper found that he enjoyed picking random iconic directors and calling them hacks just to get me riled up, and Stanley Kubrick was definitely one of the ones that he targeted pretty hard.
That is true. A hack. Yeah, well, okay. I just didn't like A Clockwork Orange. That was just a creepy movie for me. It's
a creepy movie for everyone. It's not a pleasant movie for anyone. It's not supposed to be.
Anyway, well, I think it's also just because I've watched it so many times because of Billy. So
okay. Well, okay. I'm assuming you've never seen this before.
The Killing? No, I have not.
I actually have not seen this before either. I had it. I had possession of it, and I've been meaning to watch it for a long time, and I just never got around to it. I want to throw it to you because I want to get your thoughts on it, because this is a very different kind of movie than anything we've covered on the podcast so far. We've covered older, movies as old as this, but I think this is the first kind of film noirish type movie we've done. And just tonally, I don't know, it's very different. I feel like this feels older than some of the other older movies we've covered. What did you think of this, Jasper?
I was actually pleasantly surprised with this one. At first, I was like, "Oh, it's just going to be tough," because kind of like when I watch Reservoir Dogs, they're just always kind of just like talking about the event, but we actually kind of get to see it in this one. It was just really crazy, like how they had so many stories, but there was still like the one, like the guy and his wife, and she's kind of like not really into him anymore, and everybody's got kind of the reason why they're in the job, mm-hmm. And so I think that Kubrick did a good job of like basically keeping the different stories, but yet in this why they're all doing it pretty consistent.
Yeah, this was his third movie, I think, but his first with like a full cast of professional actors and stuff like that. No, I think Kubrick did a great job. I was actually a little concerned at the beginning of this because it starts with that narration, and that is by far my least favorite thing about this movie. The narration, I don't like. I don't like it at all. It's super cheese, and I mean, other than the look of it, other than the setting, kind of the look of the film sometimes, for the most part, I think the film looks really good. I really like the shots. Cinematography is awesome. The blocking is awesome. The lighting is awesome. For the most part, there's a couple scenes where it's like, well, that's obviously some stock footage or some like kind of rough outside footage, second unit stuff. And then there's a couple scenes that are a little disappointing, but for the most part, the majority of the movie looks great. And the storytelling actually seems like the way it's not a completely linear story. It jumps back in time and follows characters from different points in time during the day, leading up to the heist and stuff. That kind of seems like ahead of its time in a way. But that narration is super dated, and it sounds... I was not super keen on the narration, so I was really worried at first. The fact that it starts with a bunch of very stock footage looking horse track stuff, I was like, oh boy, Kubrick? Like, this is Kubrick? But it actually quickly gets into like its quality. It's well made, and I think the story is interesting. There's a lot of characters and a lot of elements at play. There are certain characters that they follow more closely because they are more integral to the plot. Like you mentioned, the guy and his wife. There's also the guy that's kind of the, I don't know what you'd call him, the ringleader, I guess.
Yeah, the main guy pushing it.
So it focuses on a couple of them a little bit more, but it bounces between all of them, like most of the movie. And I thought that was really well done. It comes together really interestingly. And then just not to do too many comparisons since we haven't, we just started talking about this. We haven't got to Reservoir Dogs yet. I do find it interesting, the differences. I mean, obviously there's a lot of differences. It's a totally different movie. But I can see where Tarantino pulled aspects of it. Reservoir Dogs does a lot of that. Yeah, it's about a heist, but it's kind of like, whereas most of this movie is pre-heist, most of Reservoir Dogs is post-heist. And this movie actually focuses on and follows the heist. Like, you go through the heist from pretty much everyone's different perspective. Like, they all have a different role to play. And whereas Tarantino, like, the heist really is like totally ignored. That's the part of that story in Reservoir Dogs you don't get. This, you actually get that whole story.
I like the consistency between like the actual job and the stories surrounding the job itself, but also like the stories about why the people are in it was really good.
One thing I really liked is that it explains the heist in bits and pieces, but for the most part, there's a lot of it that it does not tell you. You see them like setting. You see, I need to get characters' names. Who's the main guy? Johnny Clay is the character's name. Who's kind of the ringleader, kind of pulling it all together. He's like one of the only ones that has like the complete picture of what's going on. Most people know their little part, but not necessarily the whole thing. And I like how the movie approaches it in that you don't get the whole thing until you watch it play together. You see him lining up the parts. You see everybody like getting prepared. Some of it is explained. Again, there's some of that awful narration kind of like sets things up. But even with that awful narration, there's a lot of it that the viewer is not privy to until you watch it play out. You can, kind of make a guess at like why he wants a guy to go start a fight and why he needs a guy to shoot the horse at a certain time, which is one of my favorite bits. Or subplots. I don't know what you'd call it. Like, you can kind of guess why, but then like it doesn't totally spell it out until you just watch it play out.
Another thing too I like about this is like the lead guy doesn't act like he's like smart. Like you like in most heist movies, like the ringleader is like always like smarter than everybody there. Kind of like I almost want to say like, what was that, Baby Driver, where
Spacey?
What's his name?
Kevin Spacey?
Kevin Spacey's character is like the smart dude and kind of basically calls the other people dumb.
Yeah, he's constantly he's Kevin Spacey. He's just condescending the whole time.
Yeah, but in this one, he's like, I'm getting these people because these people know what they're doing, and I trust them to get the job done.
No, yeah, I really like that character. I mean, almost everyone in this movie, they're all criminals, right? Like, there's not a lot of super like likable characters, but there's a few that I think are likable, and I really like this guy. I like his performance because he's not condescending, but he's very straightforward, but he's also like a fast talker. Mm-hmm. A fast talker in that he spits everything out at the other characters quick, just because that's the most straightforward, efficient way to get it across. Like, he's not trying to talk over him or nothing. He's just that straightforward. Yeah, I thought he was cool.
Yeah, he's straightforward, and everybody's got to do their part. And I kind of also like kind of somewhere in the middle of the movie where it kind of seems like that guy and the guy with his crazy wife is going to kind of like turn on the job.
Oh yeah.
But he kind of still does his job.
That's another thing. Tension. Like, this movie is excellent at how it ratchets it up tension. It does it in several different places. But like you mentioned with that guy and his wife, George is his the character. That happens like that. He has that turn where he's like, he's kind of a pushover, but then he becomes visibly like agitated and like you think he's going to double cross him. And that turn happens just before like we actually go through the main meat of the heist. So during this whole time when the heist's going down and you have all these other elements causing tension, there's the guy with the gun, that's supposed to shoot the horse, the guy who's actually physically got to go in and steal the money. Like, well, all this you've got all these different elements adding tension to the like heist when it's happening, and this guy. So the whole time you're like, is this guy like really going to turn on him? Is he going to like completely flip and screw the whole deal up and cause an issue? And he doesn't really initially, for the most part.
Right.
His wife. I think George is not a great character. Like, he's a fine character. He's not a likable character. He's such a pushover to the point where it's kind of ridiculous.
He's so weak, like, compared to all the other guys in the heist. Like, he's like, they're all strong. And I thought he was going to be like the first to die,
he is super weak, and his wife is super manipulative and transparent about it. Like, he's weak and he's super dumb, this guy. But it also kind of works because you're on the one hand, you're like, well, why would Johnny Clay have this guy in on the heist? Well, for one, he's kind of like their inside man, but literally, like, it makes sense that he would still use him because literally all the guy has to do is go and open a door. He just has to open a door at a certain time. That's all they need him for. So I don't know. It still works. Like, you can have this guy who's an idiot and who's pretty weak, but like, it still makes sense because you're like, all the dude has to do is open a door. He's our inside guy.
It's kind of almost like they did make him like he's like an integral part of the story, but then he's like all he's doing is opening a door.
You know what's funny though is in the overall plot, he is one of the main characters. He's like one of the main players. He drives because outside of the heist, well, it's all revolves around and weaves through the heist. But in the overall structure of the movie itself, the overall plot, he's one of the most important characters. It's pretty much him and his wife and everyone else, because he is the reason, you know, minor spoilers. We can get into full spoilers in a little bit, but minor spoilers, things don't eventually go well, and he's the number one reason it doesn't. It's his fault. He told his wife about the heist, and that was the main mistake. That was the first and for the most part, number one, like almost only mistake in the whole thing, but it was kind of fatal to the overall plan. Full spoilers.
He basically got everybody killed.
We have full spoilers. Yeah. Almost everyone. Full spoilers.
Yeah.
Just about everyone dies. And if they don't die, it doesn't go well for him.
It did seem like that he was the weak guy, but they try to make him that strong character at the end, but he's still screwed up pretty bad.
Okay, so I want to mention a couple of characters and like character moments that I think are my favorite that really stuck out to me. We mentioned Johnny Clay's like a pretty cool guy. I don't know that he's actually a cool guy. He's still a criminal, but he seems like a cool guy, right? I liked the way the actor portrayed him. I liked his demeanor. His girlfriend has some ridiculous lines. She pops up in the end and kind of towards the beginning when it like is bouncing between various people and kind of giving you a little bit of their why, like you said. Again, this is all at the beginning when I was still like really worried about this movie. So her character is 100% like dependent on this guy, on Johnny Clay. She's not involved in the actual heist. She's going to run away with him after he performs the heist. It's clear she kind of knows something's going. She knows like there's a heist or something going on, but she's not really involved in the heist. She's like the only character that's not. But she has this line. It's basically because Johnny Clay had been in prison at some point. And she's kind of pleading like with him, I don't want you to get in trouble again. I don't want you to go, like, you can't leave me alone. And her line is, quote, I'm not pretty and I'm not smart. Please don't leave me alone again. End quote. I was like, what? I'm not pretty and I'm not smart. Please don't leave me alone again. Wow. So that made me
sounds
laugh.
like almost like a Forrest Gump line.
It was ridiculous. Also, she was pretty. I don't know what the heck she's talking about.
Right.
Not that matters, but obviously she's concerned about it. My other favorite character, there's two characters that are completely like, there's the central group of people involved in the heist, and then there's two pretty out there characters that are totally separate that Johnny Clay approaches individually because the idea is they're not supposed to know anything about the larger plan in case they get caught. And there's the guy that starts the fight in the bar, who's basically a distraction for the security guards. And then there's the guy, the gunman, who's supposed to shoot the horse at a certain time. And I think those were kind of both interesting characters. The guy that starts the fight was kind of interesting. Super hard to understand. He kind of mumbles through this super thick accent to where I had to run it back a couple times to like try to hear what he said. However, the gunman, I was fascinated by. I thought he was a super interesting character. I really like how the actor played him. He was just like, maybe not confident, but mostly he just seemed comfortable and just like, no matter the situation, except for when things got tense. I don't know. He seemed like he was just like there having fun, chewing the scenery. And I thought he was super interesting.
Right.
And I liked how his part of the heist played out. Again, another part of the tension. Like he's got to shoot this horse at the certain time for everything to go right. Although at that point, I don't think for the viewer, it's exactly clear why. But he talks the security guard, who's a black guy. He's the only black guy in the movie, I believe. Remember, this is 1956. Talks him into letting him park in this certain parking lot, which he needs to be to get a clear shot at this horse. And there's some tension there. And then he kind of like more or less sweet talks the guy into letting him in. Well, then the guy, the security guard, he's not trying to pester him, but he keeps coming back to the guy's car, walking out to the guy's car to like, you know, hey, I'm sorry I was being a jerk, whatever. You're a nice guy. And he's just trying to be friendly. And that's going this whole time that he's trying to, like, he's waiting for the time to hit so he can pull out his gun and shoot the horse and then get out of there. But he's got the security guard coming back, and that really is effective at building tension. He ends up getting the security guard to take a walk by calling him the N-word, and that was super uncomfortable. And from a character point of view, it looks like the guy wasn't happy that he had to do it. Not that he had to do it, but he was trying to get rid of the guy as quick as possible. I don't know. I like how it was played because it kind of seemed like it's not something he would normally do or he'd want to do. But it was like emergency, like break glass in case of emergency situation. Like, I need to get this guy out of here now.
It did seem like they kind of made him like cringe when he said it, which is even weird for that kind of time because that, you know.
Well, that's exactly it. Like, it's there, right?
It's still a big thing.
But he says it, but he still has the reaction. And it is kind of surprising for the time. Not that they just call people the N-word in old movies all the time, but he still has that reaction to where it indicates to the audience that it's wrong that he did that, and the character feels like it's wrong that he did that. So that in itself is kind of interesting. However, I think that comes to bite him because that guard, once like the guy takes a shot at the horse and is trying to get out of there, that guard is Johnny on the spot with his gun and a horseshoe, a cool lucky horseshoe or whatever, kind of is that guy's downfall, but he ends up getting shot by the guard. So
that guard is there.
Which, I mean, yeah, if he didn't get rid of him in the first place, the guard would have been there. But if he hadn't made the guard angry, I don't know that the guard would have necessarily been there on the spot like that, super quick. Anyway, one of my other favorite scenes is the actual stealing of the money or whatever. That creepy, like, hobo mask that the guy wears looks super creepy. Some of the artwork you can see online for the cover is like a black and white picture. It looks kind of like sketched or something, painted maybe.
Yeah. Of
him with the hobo mask and the gun, like super cool artwork. But I liked how that all played out. He's got a crooked cop there. Like, I just liked how all the parts come together. It was pretty well executed. One of the parts that I feel like the filmmaking was a little, or the cinematography was a little kind of weak, was the fight where they had the guy fight the security guards. They did that kind of cheesy, like goofy speed up the film a little bit, and he's like spinning in a circle, and he's got like six guys. Like, tonally, it was a little weird. It was just a little weird.
I like how that was like kind of like his main role was just to fight these guys, like just to get into a bar fight, basically.
Oh yeah, and again, him and the gun guy know nothing of the plan. They're just paid, like the guy, Johnny Clay is paying them a bunch of money to not ask questions and just go do this thing. Go there, shoot this horse, or go there, start a fight. That's all I need. And they're both there for distraction. 100%. But I like that he's got these two outside guys that not even the other core heist guys, they don't even know them. They don't know who they are. So I like that aspect of it.
And it almost seems like the guy that opens the door knows what they're there for, but almost is like kind of surprised. Like when that guy starts to fight, like almost like he didn't know who was going to start the fight. That's how much he left him out.
Well, and he even starts a fight with one of the other guys involved in the heist, who at that point had already done his job, right? He was just there to sneak in a gun. But yeah. He even starts the fight with that guy, and that guy doesn't even seem to know. I'm sure he got wise to it after it started, but let's talk about the end. After the heist, there's basically I was super kind of surprised by this. Almost all of the characters, with the exception of Johnny Clay and his girlfriend, and then the one guy's wife, they all end up in the meeting spot in this apartment. They're all supposed to meet up after to split up the money, which is basically the warehouse in Reservoir Dogs, right? But this is an apartment. Johnny Clay's kind of running behind, so they're all getting nervous. So this other guy and a goon shows up, and the guy is someone who is sleeping with the weakling guy's wife. She's like let him know about this. That's revealed earlier in the movie, but they show up, and that's kind of where everything goes bad. There's basically a big gunfight, and just about everybody in the movie dies in that scene, and it's super quick too. Like it goes down fast. George, the weakling guy, gets shot. He's not dead. He goes to confront his wife, and that doesn't go well. He shoots her. That's his moment of like growing a backbone. He shoots his wife, and then he dies. And that leaves Johnny Clay, the sole survivor of this heist. So he's trying to get out of the country or wherever with this massive bag of money. It's ridiculous. With his girlfriend, he's trying to get out of the country, go to an airport. And I wanted you to talk about that last scene because you'd mentioned it yesterday or this morning when we talked about the podcast.
Like he kind of like said it where he's trying to get through airport security or whatever they called it at the time. Like, they want him to check his bag, and he's trying to get it to be a carry-on bag. It's a huge suitcase full of all the money that they got from the heist. He wants to bring it on the plane, and then the airline's like, no, you can't do that. It's too big. So after, arguing for like 10 minutes, he's like, fine, check the bag. And then, they're watching it go across the tarmac on a baggage carrier, and it falls off the
Well, it's even like ridiculous. There's this lady with this little yippy dog who's freaking out. The yippy dog gets away, runs out onto the tarmac. So the baggage carrier thing swerves to miss the dog, misses the dog, but the bag falls off. Yeah, the suitcase. Sorry. Go ahead.
And then the suitcase falls open, and then since it's a prop engine plane, that it's throwing all this wind around, and all the money just goes everywhere. The guy's face is just, it made me laugh, but yet I felt so bad for him, even though he just committed a crime.
It's kind of amazing. The shot is fantastic, and it holds on that for a long time, where it's just like a cyclone of money all over. They must have had just so many huge fans just off the side of the frame, because it reminded me of those money tubes that people get in, the money blows around, except it's outside, and it's this huge it's an airport, it's a tarmac, this huge space, this huge set, I'm assuming, and it's just money everywhere swirling. It was kind of amazing. But you're right, the look on his face, he gets this look like his body's shutting down, and it seems like it's his girlfriend that tries to kind of start pulling him away. Like, we need to go, we need to get out of here. And then there's more tension. They're trying to get out of the airport at that point, through the walk back through the airport, and he gets outside, and basically, he's going to be arrested. And that's the end of the movie. And it's just like, wow, all of that for just nothing. It went about as bad as it could. Everyone died except for the main guy, and then he had to watch the money get blown all over the airport. It's pretty crazy.
You just felt his pain, is what I was kind of saying, is like you just felt what he was feeling at that moment.
And it's funny too. It's funny from just all that work for nothing. All that work for nothing. Poor lady. She's going to be alone again, and she's not very pretty and not smart.
Right.
So, going into this, I didn't know what to expect because I knew it was an early Kubrick movie. On one hand, it doesn't have some of the hallmarks of some of his later movies. I always think, his shots aren't always symmetrical, but Kubrick always has a certain cinematic eye. But I would say, being Kubrick, you can see it in this a little bit. You can see just kind of the way it's crafted, and kind of at the time, what I'm assuming were pretty bold decisions, jumping back and forth in time a little bit. The narrative structure seems a little bold. But this movie also definitely inspired a whole bunch of filmmakers. Tarantino, obviously, especially the jumping back and forth through time to tell the story. You see it in Reservoir Dogs. We might get into that a little bit. But you definitely see it through a lot of his other movies, but Pulp Fiction being an extreme case. But also Christopher Nolan, you can totally tell Nolan took a lot of influence from Kubrick, and probably this movie specifically.
In the trivia, when I was looking it up, that the narration was the insistence of the studio. Actually, Kubrick did not want that narration at all.
I had heard that too. I didn't know. I didn't know if it was confirmed or not, so I didn't mention it. But I had heard that too, and it makes sense. It makes me think of Blade Runner, which had the exact same issue. The narration isn't necessary, and it does give you some information, like specific times, like at 10:04 a.m. so and so is here. And it's like, but we don't need that information. Like, I get that it's jumping around in time. Just go and follow them. Like, I feel like the storytelling would have been a little bit better if they didn't have it, because we don't need it spelled out for us like that. But the studio probably got scared. They're like, this is weird. People are going to be confused when it jumps over here and it's like earlier in the day. Well, people will get it, you know.
I just think it wasn't really needed, but
I agree. Like I said, that's my least favorite thing about it, and it hurt the movie quite a bit for me. I'm curious about your star rating, sir.
Well, if you want me to go first.
I do.
So actually, like I said, this is a movie I was really, really into. Other than the narration, like the narration didn't, like I would say didn't bother me a lot. I just kind of zoned it out and was just kind of listening, you know, when the characters talked. But just the way that the story was told and the way that the characters were built up, and like kind of like you said, where the tension was there, I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars.
Oh, nice. Okay, you've probably seen my Letterboxd rating of this, haven't you?
I have not actually.
Okay, I want you to guess. Don't look. I want you to guess then. What do you think I'm going to rate this?
I want to say 3.5 out of 5.
What? Okay. Yes, I give this a 3.5 out of 5, which, for as much as I praised it, feels a little low, but the narration hurt it, like I said. I feel like the first half it's not weak, but I struggled with it a little bit. It takes a while to get going. Not like it's
a little slow.
Well, yeah, I mean, it paces okay. It's just a lot of the stuff that happened in the first half, I didn't care. I was like, this is not really getting me on board. And once we got into the heist, I was more on board. But then there's stuff where it felt a little, I don't know. I kind of had to go with my gut feeling after finishing it on the rating on this one. Because when I analyze it and I look at it, as everyone just heard for the last 30 minutes, if not longer, you know, I have a lot of good things to say about it. But that said, there's a lot of stuff that kind of dates it, and there's stuff I didn't like, and yeah, I'm just going to have to go 3.5. I mean, obviously it's not a terrible rating, but I don't know that I'd watch it again right away. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a bad movie.
No, I agree. I don't think it's bad at all. I think it's good, and I would recommend it. I think it's worth a watch. I think maybe I was hoping for a little bit more,